The first time the mountain spoke. Jahmal thought he was going mad. It wasn't a sound you could point to. Not wind, not voice, not anything a man could explain. But it called his name. Clear, soft, right behind him. Jahmal. He spun around so fast his boots slipped in the wet soil. Nothing, only mist. Thick, swallowing mist that wrapped around the peaks of the Blue Mountains like a living thing, breathing, shifting, watching. And then it whispered again. The mist came before the sun, not a gentle morning fog, not the kind that lifts politely when the light touches it, but a thick, breathing veil that swallowed the peaks of the Blue Mountains and pressed itself low into the valleys like something alive, something watching. And in that silence, something whispered. No wind moved the leaves, no birds called, yet the sound carried, soft, layered, like voices carried through water. Jahmal stopped mid-step. The woven basket on his back creaked as he shifted his weight. Inside it, wrapped carefully in banana leaves, were the first flowers of his season. Dense, fragrant, glistening with resin like morning dew that refused to fade. He didn't turn around. Out here, you don't turn when the mountain calls. You listen. They said the land up here wasn't just land. Old people from St. Thomas would shake their heads when his name came up. Even the traders in Kingston, who only cared about weight and price, lowered their voices when they heard where his crops came from. High-peak Ganja different, one had muttered, eyes darting. That soil, it remember things. Jahmal never argued, because he knew it was true. He had not always believed. 3 years ago, Jahmal was just another farmer trying to survive. Drought burned his first crop. Pests took the second. The third never even made it to harvest. Men came in the night, cutting down everything he had built, leaving only broken stalks and footprints that vanished into the forest. By the time the fourth season came, Jahmal was finished. Not broke, broken. That night, he climbed higher than he ever had before, past the marked paths, past the old stone terraces swallowed by moss, past the place where even goats refused to wander. The air changed up there. It grew colder, but not empty, heavy, thick, like stepping into a room already occupied. And then he saw it, a clearing, perfectly round. No trees grew there, though the forest pressed in tight around its edges. The soil inside was darker than anything he had ever seen, rich, almost black, like it held centuries beneath its surface. And in the center, a single stone, not placed, planted. He didn't remember deciding to kneel, but suddenly he was on the ground, hands pressed into the soil, heart pounding so hard it blurred his hearing. Then the whispers came again. Not outside him this time, inside. Not all who plant are chosen. The voice was neither male nor female. Old, but not weak. Calm, but carrying weight that pressed against his chest. Jahmal tried to stand. He couldn't. You take, but you never give. His throat went dry. But the words wouldn't form. Because deep down, he knew. He had been treating the land like a tool, a means, a hustle. The ground beneath his palms warmed, slowly, like something beneath it had awakened. Balance is the root. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, circling him. Blood, remember. Soil, remember. Mountain, remember. A wind rose suddenly, but the trees did not move, only the clearing. only him. When he woke, the sun was already high. He was lying outside the clearing, the stone gone. Or maybe it had never been there. Jahmal staggered to his feet. His hands were covered in soil, black soil. That was the day everything changed. Now, standing once again in that same clearing, Jahmal exhaled slowly. The mist curled around him, thicker than before, waiting, watching. He lowered the basket from his back, carefully, respectfully. No rush, every movement deliberate. "Me bring the first fruits," he said quietly. His voice didn't echo. It sank into the ground. He unwrapped the banana leaves. The scent rose instantly, earthy, sweet, sharp with life. Even the air seemed to react, tightening around the offering. These were not ordinary flowers. Every plant had been grown different. No chemicals, no shortcuts. Only mountain water, hand-mixed compost, and patience that bordered on obsession. He had spoken to them as they grew, not because he believed they could hear, but because something inside him told him they should. "Mino kom fitek today," he said, his voice steadier now. "Me come forgive." The silence deepened. Then, the mist shifted, not drifting, turning, spiraling slowly around the clearing like a breath being drawn inward. Jahmal didn't move, didn't blink. A shape began to form, not solid, not fully seen, but enough. Tall, layered, as if made from smoke, memory, and shadow all at once. The whispers returned, stronger, closer. "You remember." Jahmal swallowed hard. "Me learn," he said. A pause, long enough to stretch his nerves thin. Then the air dropped, cold, sharp. "Den prove it." The ground beneath the offering cracked, not violently, but with purpose, like a door opening. And the flowers began to sink. Jahmal's chest tightened. This was it. No turning back now. "Every harvest require a price." The whispers circled him, faster now, layer upon layer. "You ready for pay?" The mist surged forward. The shape grew taller, closer, almost touching him. Jahmal closed his eyes, and for the first time since he came to the mountain, he answered without fear. "Tell me the cost." The whispers stopped, instantly. Silence fell so heavy it crushed the air. Then, one voice remained, clear, ancient, unavoidable. "Your life or your truth?" Jahmal's eyes snapped open. The shape stood directly before him now, watching, waiting, and deep in his chest, he realized something terrifying. He didn't know which one he could afford to lose. The mist swallowed everything. Jahmal did not answer right away, because the mountain was not asking a simple question. It was asking him to choose what kind of man he was willing to become. "Your life or your truth?" The words echoed, not in the air, but inside his chest. Each beat of his heart carried them deeper, louder. He felt it in his bones. Jahmal swallowed hard. His eyes locked onto the shifting figure before him, if it could even be called a figure. It was wrong to look at directly, not because it was frightening, but because it felt too real, too ancient, like staring at something that existed long before language. "Explain," Jahmal said finally, his voice rough but steady. The mist tightened around him. The ground beneath his feet pulsed once, then again. "Every harvest carry memory." The clearing shifted. The world bent. Jahmal blinked, and suddenly, he wasn't alone anymore. Figures stood at the edges of the clearing, dozens of them, faint, half-formed, like silhouettes made from smoke and time. Men, women, old, young, some with machetes in hand, some with baskets on their heads, some with chains. Jahmal's breath caught. "You walk upon land soaked in sacrifice," the voice continued. "Before you're planned, others bleed." The figures moved, not forward, but through him. And when they passed, he saw it. The past. Fields where men were forced to work until their backs broke. Hidden plots deep in the hills where herbs were grown in secret, guarded by those who trusted no law but the mountain itself. Fires burning at night, songs rising in defiance, rituals whispered under breath. The ganja was never just a crop. It was survival, resistance, prayer. Jahmal dropped to one knee, not from fear, but from the weight of what he was seeing. "Your truth is what you hide from the land." The visions stopped. The clearing returned. But something had changed. The air was heavier now, judging. Jahmal's mind raced. Truth? What truth? And then it hit him. Not something from the mountain, something from himself. He saw his old life again, the rushed harvests, the shortcuts, the times he cut plants too early just to make quick money, the chemicals he once used, just once, he told himself, when things were failing, the lies he told buyers, calling his crop pure when he knew it wasn't. Jahmal clenched his fists. "No man perfect," he muttered. Silence. Then, a sudden force hit his chest. Not physical, but undeniable. It knocked the air from his lungs. "Mountain no deal in excuses." The mist surged violently. The figure stretched taller. "You take from sacred soil and give back corruption." The ground beneath him cracked again, deeper this time. Darkness spread through the soil like ink in water. Jahmal scrambled back, his heart pounding. "What you want from me?" he shouted. The answer came instantly. Confession. The word struck him harder than anything else. Not sacrifice, not blood. Truth. Speak it, or the land reject you. The figures at the edge of the clearing began to return, closer this time, watching, waiting. Jahmal's chest tightened. This wasn't a deal. This was judgment. If he lied, would they know? The answer came before he could even finish the thought. Everything grow here. Reveal itself. No escape. Jahmal closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. Then he spoke. Me did greedy. The air shifted. Me rush the land when it need time. The figures leaned closer. Me poison the soil, fi save myself. The ground trembled. His voice broke now. Me treat it like business, not like life. Silence fell, heavy, waiting. Then, the darkness in the soil stopped spreading. The mist softened, just slightly. You see now? Jahmal opened his eyes slowly. The figure before him had changed, still vast, still unreadable, but calmer. Truth, feed the root. The ground beneath the offering sealed itself. The flowers were gone, taken, accepted. Jahmal exhaled sharply. Relief, but only for a moment, because the voice was not finished. Now, the test begin. The wind rose suddenly. This time the trees moved, violently. The sky darkened, too fast, too unnatural. Harvest without greed. Lightning flashed across the peaks. Grow without control. Thunder cracked like the mountain itself was splitting open. Protect what you cannot own. Jahmal's heart pounded harder. What happen if me fail? The answer came like a whisper carried through centuries. Then the mountain take back everything. The mist rushed forward, engulfing him completely. And in that moment, Jahmal saw something that froze his blood. His farm, burning. His plants, withering in seconds. His body, lying in the same clearing, still. Empty. Then it was gone. Jahmal gasped as the mist pulled back. He was alone again, the clearing silent, untouched, as if nothing had happened. But deep in the soil beneath his feet, something had been set in motion. And far below the mountain, unseen by Jahmal, a group of men stepped onto his land. Not farmers. Hunters. Watching. Planning. The real test had already begun.
By the time Jahmal reached his hillside, the sun was already sliding behind the ridges, but the light felt wrong. Too dim. Too fast. Like the day itself was trying to end before something could begin. He stopped at the edge of his field. Rows of plants stretched across the slope, tall, vibrant, leaves wide and healthy, flowers heavy with resin. On any other evening, it would have filled him with pride. Today, it filled him with dread. Harvest without greed. The mountain's words echoed again. Jahmal stepped into the field slowly, brushing his fingers along the leaves. They felt different, alive in a way he had never noticed before. Not just growing, responding. A low rustle moved through the plants, not wind. There was no wind. Jahmal froze. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Not one, several, coming from the lower edge of the property. His chest tightened. The vision. The warning. He moved quickly now, crouching low between the rows, making his way toward the sound. Voices drifted up the slope. This is the place, one said, low and certain. Me tell ya, man, high grade, straight export quality. Jahmal's jaw clenched. 3 men stepped into view, boots, dark clothing, faces half covered. Not police, not farmers. Predators. Oh, and I not even know what him have, another muttered, kicking at the soil. Jahmal felt anger rise in his chest, hot, immediate. This was his land, his work. But then, the mountain's voice cut through him again. Protect what you cannot own. He hesitated. Cannot own? What did that even mean? The men began moving deeper into the field. One pulled out a knife, testing a bud, crushing it between his fingers. "Yeah, this worth money," he grinned. Jahmal's breathing grew heavier. Every instinct told him to act, to defend, to fight. But something held him back. The air shifted. Cold. The plants around the men moved. Subtle at first, leaves turning, stems bending. Watching. Jahmal's eyes widened. The mountain wasn't just testing him. It was watching how he chose to act. One of the men stepped forward and suddenly stumbled. "What?" His foot had sunk into the soil. Not mud. Something thicker. He yanked his leg free. "Grown soft here," he muttered. But it wasn't soft. It was holding. Jahmal felt it now, the connection, the land reacting, waiting for him. Grow without control. He closed his eyes briefly. If he stepped in now, he would be choosing control, violence, fear. If he didn't, what would the land do? The men spread out. One began cutting. The sound of blade against stem sliced through the air. Jahmal flinched. And that's when it happened. The wind came, sudden, violent. The entire field swayed, not randomly, but in rhythm, like breath. The man cutting froze. "Yo, you see that?" Another laughed nervously. "Just breeze, man." Then the ground shifted, not cracked, moved. A ripple passed beneath their feet. One of them fell hard. "What kind of place this?" The plants leaned inward, not collapsing, closing. Jahmal stared in shock. The field was protecting itself. No, the mountain was. One of the men turned suddenly, looking straight toward where Jahmal hid. Their eyes locked. For a split second, silence. Then, "Somebody there!" Everything broke. The men charged uphill. Jahmal sprang to his feet and ran. Branches tore at his arms. His breath burned. Behind him, footsteps, shouting, and something else, a deeper sound. The mountain, moving. The ground beneath the men shifted again, more violently this time. One slipped, another fell, but they kept coming, driven now, angry. Jahmal reached the upper ridge and stopped. There was nowhere else to go. The drop beyond was steep, dangerous. He turned. The men closed in. "You think you can hide?" one spat. Jahmal's chest heaved. This was it. Fight or trust the mountain. Protect what you cannot own. His fists clenched. Then, slowly, relaxed. He stepped back, closer to the edge. The men rushed forward, and then the mountain answered. A deafening crack split the air. The ridge beneath the men collapsed. Not fully, not enough to kill, but enough. They dropped hard, sliding down loose earth, scrambling, shouting in panic. "Move! Move!" They fled, not looking back. Silence returned. Jahmal stood frozen. The wind died. The field stilled. And deep beneath his feet, he felt it. Approval. But it came with something else. A warning. This was only the beginning. Far below the mountain, a phone rang. "Yeah," a voice answered. A pause. Then a cold reply. "Burn it." Jahmal looked out over his land. The sky above had turned a deep, unnatural red. And for the first time, he understood.
The test was not just spiritual anymore. It was war. The fire came before midnight. Jahmal smelled it before he saw it. Not the warm scent of wood burning in a cooking pit. No, this was sharp, bitter, hungry. He rose from his bed instantly. No confusion, no hesitation. The mountain had already warned him. Outside, the sky pulsed orange. Too bright, too fast. "Burn it!" The voice from earlier echoed in his mind. Jahmal ran, barefoot down the slope, through the narrow path carved between rock and root. Branches lashed against his skin, but he didn't slow. Then he saw it. His field, on fire. Flames tore through the rows like something alive, devouring leaves, curling buds, turning months of care into ash within seconds. And standing at the edge, 3 figures, the same men, but now they weren't alone. A 4th stood with them, still, watching, dressed clean, untouched by dirt or smoke. A man who didn't plant, didn't harvest, but owned. Jamal's chest tightened. "You shoulda just sail," the man said calmly, not even turning around. Jahmal froze. The man continued. "Everybody have a price. You just stubborn." The flames roared higher. "Now look." He gestured toward the burning field. "All that? Gone." Jamal's fists clenched. Gone. Everything. Or so it seemed. Because beneath the fire, something else moved. The ground. "Protect what you cannot own." Jahmal stepped forward slowly. "This land no fi sale," he said. The man laughed softly. "Everything sell." He turned now, his eyes cold. "Even you." Silence stretched between them. Then, the mountain answered. The fire changed. It stopped spreading. No, it pulled inward, like it was being drawn down into the soil. The men stepped back, confused. "What?" The flames sank, consumed by the ground itself. Smoke twisted unnaturally, spiraling upward, then reversing, back down into the earth. The 4th man's calm finally broke. "Move!" he snapped. Too late. The soil split open, not violently, deliberately, like breath. The ground beneath their feet softened, then pulled. One of the men screamed as his legs sank deep. "Help me!" Another tried to grab him, but the soil dragged harder. The mountain was not killing them. It was rejecting them, spitting them out of something they were never meant to touch. The clean man stumbled back, fear now clear on his face. "This place, not normal." Jahmal stepped closer. "No," he said quietly. "It never was." The wind rose, stronger than before. The mist began to form again, even in the heat of the burned field. The figures returned. Dozens. Watching. The same ancestral shapes from the clearing. The men saw them and broke. They ran, pulling free, falling, scrambling down the slope in pure terror. Only the 4th man remained, frozen. Jahmal stopped a few feet from him. "You still think everything have price?" The man said nothing, because now he understood. He turned and fled. Gone. Silence returned. Jahmal stood alone in the charred field, or what was left of it. Ash, blackened soil, loss. His chest tightened. Had he passed, or had he lost everything? The mist curled around him again. The presence returned, closer than ever. You choose. Jahmal didn't speak. Not life. A pause. Not lie. The air warmed. You choose balance. The ground beneath him pulsed. Once, twice. Then, something impossible happened. The soil began to breathe. Ash shifted, cracked, and from beneath the blackened earth, green. Tiny shoots, dozens, hundreds, rising fast, too fast. Jahmal stepped back in shock. The field was returning. Not the same, better, stronger, alive in a way that made the air itself vibrate. Now you understand. The presence softened. You na own de land. The shoots grew taller. You serve it. Jahmal's eyes filled slowly, not from fear, but from something deeper. Respect, connection, purpose. He dropped to his knees, hands pressing into the soil, this time not as a man begging, but as a man who finally understood. The mist began to fade. The figures disappeared. The mountain grew silent once more, but the whisper remained. Not outside him, inside, guiding, watching. And as the first light of morning broke over the peaks, Jahmal stood in a field reborn, not as its owner, but as its guardian.
The mountain was quiet. Too quiet. For 3 days, nothing happened. No whispers, no mist, no dreams. Jahmal worked the land in silence. The new growth was unlike anything he had ever seen. Faster, stronger, almost glowing under the early morning light. Word spread quickly. Too quickly. By the 4th day, strangers began arriving. Not thieves this time. Buyers. Clean vehicles, pressed clothes, soft voices with hard eyes. "Top dollar," one said, smiling too easily. "We can make this global." Jahmal said nothing, because something felt wrong. Not danger, not like before. Something deeper. That night, the mist returned, but it was different. Thinner, unstable. Jahmal stood in the clearing again, waiting. "Me ready," he said quietly. Silence. Then, a whisper, but not the same voice. "You think you pass?" Jahmal's eyes snapped open. The air felt colder, sharper. The figure that formed was not the same. This one was fractured, edges broken, shifting too fast. Wrong. Jahmal stepped back slowly. "Who? You?" A low laugh echoed through the clearing. "Me? Me part of the mountain too." The mist twisted violently. "Balance needs shadow." Jahmal's chest tightened. This wasn't the guardian. This was something else. Something that had been watching, waiting. "You give truth. Good," the voice whispered. A pause. "Now, me take what remain." The ground beneath Jahmal cracked suddenly. Not steady, not controlled. Violent. He stumbled. "What you want?" The answer came like a blade.
Ownership. Jahmal froze. You learn fi serve, the voice hissed. Me come fi rule. The mist surged forward. Images flooded Jamal's mind. His field expanded, massive, exported worldwide, wealth beyond imagination. No balance, no limits, just power. Take it, the voice urged. Control it. Own everything. Jamal's breathing grew heavy. This was different from the first test. This wasn't about truth. This was temptation. And it felt real. More real than the whispers of the past. More real than the guardian. Because it spoke to something inside him. Desire. His hands trembled. Outside the clearing, engines roared. The buyers had returned. More of them. And this time, they weren't asking. The voice whispered again. Say yes, and everything belong to you. Jahmal closed his eyes. The mountain was silent. No guidance, no correction. This choice was his alone. Then, something moved beneath his feet. Not the violent force, not the shadow. Something deeper, slower, watching, waiting. And for the first time, Jahmal realized something terrifying. The mountain was divided. Light and shadow. Balance was not guaranteed. It had to be chosen every time. The voice pressed closer. Choose. Jahmal opened his eyes slowly, and what he saw in the mist made his blood run cold. Because the shadow was wearing his face, smiling, waiting for him to become it.